last night we left off basically just getting done with the weight and balance. And so we did one yesterday in class, like all the way from the start to the finish of the weight and balance, basically. So we were just about to do the simplified flight planning, and then the air conditioner turned on. So we ended class. It was San Francisco to Kalispell.
They'll just start and catch up.
It's tricky because it's GPI.
GPI, yeah.
But real life.
So
I'll put GPI on
Are you talking about the airport? The code?
Yeah.
That's weird. I wonder why is it like that?
It's military base too, or military airport. But all the charts come up GPI. But like in my brain, I know it's FC. I'm like, I can't do it.
So do we put
So Tyler, I'm gonna
GPI or FCA
add you to this
on the forms?
so that you can see it.
Put GPI
Okay.
on there.
That's right. Yeah. Well, he knows.
Well, you can access that
I
file.
think it is GPI, but like, I know.
So just check your email and you can link to it. It's a tougher plan, but okay. So now that we're done with the weight and balance for that flight, what is so we know that the next step is the simplified.
ISA.
Yeah, ISA. Okay.
And the temperature was 10. I had it wrote down. And I was 80%.
So the big question is, let's see, you guys figure out the ISA temperature for San Francisco. You need this up. There's San Fran. Or wait, what? Figure out ISA for San Fran.
So it is anyways. It is 1.2. Yeah, he told us yesterday.
So we don't end up. Need to know what the elevation is.
Awesome.
Just Google it.
I just made them.
Nice. Extra points for your final pass.
Oh yeah, I think I did take that today too.
So what is the ISO temperature for San Fran?
I gotta see what the elevation is first.
I'll give you a big hint. It's literally right on the water.
I guess that's a show, huh?
Has anybody ever seen the approach to San Francisco?
It's
No,
like a
Andrea
big
has.
bridge.
You literally,
It's like a dock, kind of.
yeah, I mean, seconds before you land, you're still over the water.
I was on the ramp at Asian.
Oh, really? So we had a dispatcher that worked for SkyWest that was, he used to do it's not like a dispatch position, but like kind of the weight and balance little guy for Asiana as well. Cause just for the San Francisco flights, but so they have a little company there that'll do their weight and balance for the flights that depart San Francisco. Anyway, so he was waiting for that flight to get in, and so he was out there actually on the ramp, like actually driving around, and he ended up like seeing the whole thing crash, and then he like went out there, like drove his little vehicle out there and everything. He showed me all these pictures of him like standing right next
to it. Wow.
by the plane, and like literally with all the like with people, like you can see the people jumping out, like, you know.
Yeah.
And he's taking
The
pictures.
weirdest
He's like,
day of flying.
Yeah.
That day.
which flight was it?
Asiana that crashed in San Francisco.
That's crazy.
It's still crazy that the only person that died was because the guy ran over.
Yeah. Amazing.
Probably like
the
a,
fire truck, because they didn't listen, just started running all over the ramp. And a fire truck, when they were emergency vehicles got on scene, they hit her.
She was like covered in foam, I believe, right, or something.
Yeah, I can't remember.
wow.
I couldn't see her. These are excellent.
It's
Yes,
the only
they are.
time
Wait,
SkyWest lost me in the entire system.
Is your husband like, what are you doing? Waking up making cookies.
No, he's been fired.
2 days. They couldn't find me. I'm like, still in San Fran where you left me.
But you make cookies new.
Why aren't you working in like Portland? You left me in San Fran, don't you remember?
So
Okay.
it's ISA plus 5 then? Well, I guess 10. We'd round up to 10 now. Use
Well,
the
below
chart.
10.
Well,
so plus 10
is it-
below.
Is it exactly ISO plus 5 though? Yeah, so the chart's ISO plus 5. We have a chart for
Oh, I
ISO
thought
plus 5.
oh, you're right. I thought there was one for 10 with some.
Oh, I was thinking for this one just goes to ISA. Plus 10 and below.
Then yeah, that's the one we would go to on just
But
that
for
part of it.
Oh, that's what I
ones.
meant, yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
our other ones, we would use it.
yeah. Okay, so then using that chart, and I'll bring that chart up here.
And because I calculated my weight a little bit wrong, I'm still gonna just use it. I had every intention of going back and reworking my weight last night. But I figure, what's 400 pounds?
So what's our takeoff weight?
Got 71304.
I remember right, the consensus was everybody was in that mid 71,000 range, right? Okay, so no matter where you are in that range, you can round that up to 72,000. Because we go up to the nearest 1,000. So we've got a 72 box right here, or a line. So if we go here, that's our takeoff weight that we're rounding up to. And then we've got the line already drawn, which is lovely. Go all the way up. And we're going up to our ISA temperature for San Fran. So not ISA plus 20, not 15, but this one, ISA plus 10C and below. So that puts us right there. Yeah, so we're right on that line. So if we go this way and see where we line up. Yeah, so we're not quite 39,000. So what direction is this flight going?
East.
East. So we need to be at odd. So this is going to make us go down to 37,000 feet. Okay, good. Anybody fuzzy on anything with this chart? Or is that all pretty straightforward and simple?
Simple.
Okay, so we're going to be at 37,000 feet. Delete that. Okay, now the next thing. Well, the next thing technically first is going to be this. Let's bring up our winds aloft. Everybody see those good? Okay.
Right in the middle.
So we're between 34 and 39. So we need to take an average of all that stuff.
Real quick, so when we do that, and we have some of those funny numbers, just change those now before you average, right? Did that make sense to my question?
Yeah, so what I do when I'm averaging up those numbers.
Like, can I just
Hey, will
change
you,
them?
Scott, will you shut the lights off in there?
Sure.
Oh, actually, you already shut the door.
No, I could eat this all day.
Scott, there's peanut butter cookies over here and milk if you want any. Thanks to Crystal.
So this airport is Glacier Park, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Let's see if this thing has the little drawing thing. It doesn't, so. I'm gonna open up a new little thing here. File, come on, file, create, one blank page. Actually, you know what? Come on. Okay, so we need to average the 34,000 and the 39,000 levels here. So you can do this any direction you want, okay? So if you want to go like average down, go this way first and then average down this way and get two numbers at the bottom and then combine those, you can do that, or you can just individually write.
What's easier to just do
to go across?
Do it across because I'm going to use them again.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just do that then. So that first one is going to be 260, and that next one we did that the minus 50 and the add the 1 in front of the next two. So that's going to be 250 at 106. So we're basically 250 and 260. So that's going to be what, 255 on the average direction. And then 106 and 99 averaged. So difference of 7.
I'm going to be 260 for saffron.
Well, 260 and 250. So 260 and 250 would be 255.
255.
So, and then the average speed is an average of 106 and 99. So that would be a difference of 7. So I'm just going to write them right here at the top. So San Fran is 255 at, so 106 and 99, so plus 4, so 103 would be the average there. And if you want to go ahead and get the temperature for negative 57 and negative 48. So a difference of 9. So let's take it on, when you do the temperature, do it on the short side. So do 4 instead of 5. Yeah, because it's going to be 4.5. So on temperature, round down, because down in negative temperatures is going to be hotter.
Oh, that's right.
So negative 52, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, cool. Now, Sacramento is 260 and 260 with 101 and 105. So Sac is 260, 101 and 105, so 103.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Put the space there. 103. And then temperature, negative 56 and negative 58. So a difference of 8, so we'll just add 4, so we're still negative 52. Okay, the next one is Lakeview. What in the world did I just do?
Surprise, Mel.
It's a new mail that just popped up.
New, you have Mel.
You have Mel.
Okay, so the next one is 270 and 270. 76 and 79. They were 270, right? 106 and 109. So 107 or 108. So it's a difference of 3. So this one would go higher.
Why are you going higher on this one then?
Because this is wind speed. So higher would be more limiting.
Oh, okay.
So the only
just
thing we would ever
temperature
go
you'd
down.
wanna go
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Okay.
So just think always what makes it worse for us. More higher wind speed makes it worse. Hotter temperature. The only thing with hotter temperature in negatives is hotter is down in the negative. So that's the only reason. And 56 and 57. We'll just leave it at 56.
Oh yeah, down.
Okay. The next one, Boise, 260 and 260, 79 and 85. BOI, 260, what was it, 79 and 85?
Yeah.
So 82. And next. And then 50 and negative 50 and 51. So just negative 50. Okay. Next one, that's Boise. So the next one is Lewiston, 260 and 260, and then 47 and 43. LWS, 260, 47 and 43, right? 45. 48, 48. That's nice. Okay. Then the last one is FCA, right? Which is Kalispell. Oh, GPI, sorry. 250, 250, 39, 35. Welcome.
Thanks, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. 250, then 39 and 35, right? So 37 at 49. Cool. Neg 49. Okay, so now just take these and let's total these up. Just one average going all the way down.
I got 259, 82, how am I doing?
Two, 5, plus 260 plus 270 plus 260 plus 260 plus 250 divided by 6. So 259, we just say 260? 259?
Yeah.
260 makes it a nice round number, a little easier for us. Okay. And then you said you already got the speed?
82 is what I got.
82? Okay.
Or negative.
Just. This thing keeps doing my thing.
I'm good, and you?
What were you getting on your wind again? 80?
Did you?
Huh. I'm getting 80. Who else got 80? You got 80? I just want to see if I missed something.
No, I just did mine a little bit different.
80?
You get a haircut. Yeah, I got 82.
Okay.
You got 80. Or you got 80 as well.
82? And then negative 51?
Yeah,
That's what I got.
that's what I got.
Okay.
I just do mine a little different, so that's probably.
I was trying to think. I was thinking maybe you were saying 82 as well, like TO.
No, I just ran my average straight down first,
Oh, okay.
as opposed to how already converting it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so that's our total wind for the whole flight. That's our average wind for the entire flight. So our average heading for this flight was 019, right? So let me just toss that in there. 019. Okay, so take out your apps. This one you just use the 400 true airspeed. Make sure you clear everything out. True course is 19. True airspeed is 400. Wind direction is 260. Wind speed is 80. Sure, they didn't change anything. 260. 19. Okay. So what kind of a tailwind are we getting here? What are you getting?
39 or 38.8.
I'm getting 33.
I'm getting 33 too.
You're getting 33? What are you using?
I'm
Your
having a
I'm
wrong
using the
one.
same app as you.
are you iPhone?
Did
Yeah.
you double check it didn't switch? Sometimes it switches.
I did the wing
Oh.
component, not the heading and ground speed.
Oh, that's why I go back.
I'm having the wrong one. Function.
Are we looking for the ground speed?
I just used the same one on both of them.
Use this because look, the ground speed tells you if it's a headwind or tailwind just because we're supposed to be going 400.
The other one tells you if it's a tailwind or a headwind also. It actually says tailwind.
Which section are you using?
Heading.
Heading
What
and ground
app?
speed.
No.
I'm using the heading and ground speed. I use the heading and ground speed on everything we do in here.
That's
So
that was something different.
Mine says to put in
Because we don't have
true
the true
airspeed
airspeed.
too.
This video
mine says true
400.
airspeed.
80.
No, that's not a true airspeed.
Yeah.
That's
400?
where we're going, it's 400. That's why
Yeah, for the simplified, we're still just using the
Oh.
400. So put it this way: on the true airspeed, it doesn't matter what you put on the true airspeed. You could put 0, or well, you got to put at least something. But the true airspeed doesn't matter because it's just whatever you put in there, it's just going to add to. You could put 100, and you're still going to get the same. You should get the same ground speed. It's still going to be a 33 knot tailwind, whether you're going 100 or 400. So
Yeah, mine says 433.
Yeah.
430.
No, that's right. You just minus the 400 now, which is 33.
Would this work? If I did this one?
Does that make sense?
So why you minus the 400?
Because 400
I'm not
is
smart on
just
that.
So the
when
wind
we're
component
going,
that
right?
you, so
So if we have a
So our
tailwind
one
at
that you're
33 knots,
in,
it
it's
pushes
what
us up
she's
to
using?
going 430.
I
That's-
just put
Does
the
that
wrong
make sense?
one. Smart on the
So like if it was
That's
a headwind
from the
at 33
runway.
knots, you just would be minus 33 from 400.
Yeah, it is, but that's how we did it the last time I was.
That's how we did it when we were looking at the runway.
Right, that's what
Pretty
we
much,
No,
yeah.
what
So it's
we
like that's how
the
fast
heading
we
and
think
ground
we're going,
speed, once we
but
got
we're really
to
going
this,
400
actually
and
the true airspeed after looking at all the charts. The true airspeed at 400 is just our like, what we're assuming right now, right?
Yeah.
Not after doing the chart. So we had used this before we got our true airspeed. But it doesn't matter, I can start
Yeah,
using
the only
this.
time I ever remember using this one was when we were calculating the crosswind for Helen. That's shows on there.
When I did that one was wrong. But it's the heading ground, and then I put it in there. Right? And then true course, 0.
Because the other one actually tells you if it's a headwind or a tailwind.
Yeah, and that one you would use for your landing. Like if we used it in some other place, then we shouldn't have. But I don't remember using it in any place except for when we were looking at the Great Falls crosswind or the Helena crosswind for that one flight plan. That's the only time I ever remember using it.
So then to figure out if this is a headwind or a tailwind, it would just be if it's more than 400, that's a tailwind, and if it's less than 400, it's a headwind or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, the true airspeed on that page right there, it doesn't matter. You just need to type an even number. It doesn't matter if it's 100, 400, 300. You're still going to get the same. It's the wind that's making the difference. So if you're going 100, it's still going to be a 33 knot tailwind.
Okay.
Or 400, it's still a 33 knot tailwind.
It's the same as when he was explaining that little slider thing, how we just put it on 400, that even number.
Well, this doesn't make sense because now this, if I put in 100, then it says 110 knots. So then it's telling me a 10 knot tailwind. That's a big difference.
That's actually,
When I did it with 100, it had the same answer.
Yeah, I got what
Yeah.
Aubrey's got.
It does change.
yeah,
I hate this
Sure.
app.
Well,
And if it's in
either way.
another calculator, it gives
Okay.
like 38.
Just make sure you keep it at 400 then.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
So actually, did you, when we were talking to her just now, did you say why not to use the wind component line?
Because that's for landing on the ground for a runway component. That's all that's for. Like it asks you for the runway heading at the very top. If it's asking you for a runway when you're up in the middle of the air cruising, then that should just be the indicator that you're using the wrong one.
Yeah. But like what's different about it? Like, can you just imagine the word runway's not there and just pretend like that's your heading? Like if I put 019 in there and then our wind direction and our wind speed.
Because the difference is that this one's asking you for your true course. That other one's asking you for a runway heading. Runways are in magnetic headings, and air is true headings. And there's a difference between magnetic and true.
Yeah.
And that's why it's off. Because a runway, well, this one, if you're using it for a runway, it knows that your wind direction is always going to be in a true direction. It's not going to be magnetic winds. So like winds aloft or METARs, all that stuff, those wind reports are in true. And so they don't have a magnetic variance on them. Runways, though, the heading for a runway is in magnetic. But the runway, when we're in the air, we're using true headings. So that's why you get a little bit of a slight difference on those.
So just to make sure we always use the word so we don't put the wrong answer.
Yes.
On this one, if you're doing anything up in the air, for simplified, it's just like you're still doing your initial fuel. Your initial fuel, we use 400. When you do your simplified, you use 400. The only time we'll change this is when we go in and start doing the other legs, the actual legs, where we get the true airspeed from the chart, then we would use the true airspeed from the chart right there instead of the 400. But if you're on the ground or if you're landing, then if you want to know the runway wind, then you use the other one. And really the only time you're going to really be using that one is to figure out if you're over the max tailwind, or it's pretty rare that we would even use that even on the runway. So normally it's not going to be something that you got to even calculate. Okay, so 33 knot tailwind. I guess I was thinking that 100 would work on it because if you do this and you use 100 or 400, it doesn't change. So I assumed that it would just be the same because it's the same on this, but I guess that's what you get for assuming. Anyway, Okay, so we know that it's a 33 knot tailwind. So let's go back to our charts. We know that we're at 37,000 feet. Okay. So we're starting out right here on the 0 reference line. We're going to go over, our distance on this trip is 762. So there's 700, there's 750, so we're on this line. 750 right there, 760 would be right there, 762 just barely above it. Okay, so 760. So it's a 33 knot tailwind. So we're gonna go backwards like this. So there's 10 knots, there's 20, there's 30, maybe just a little bit over 33. Somewhere right in there ish. Okay. So it's nice, it's kind of right on this line right here. So yeah, so this line, we go straight up. And that bottom line up here, you can see that's the 370 and above. So that is the line we're going to. So now we're good there. Now we take this line.
Wait, do that right here so I can see it.
It's the same machine right there.
I know.
So I'm just going to start. I'm starting on the opposite side because it won't let me. If I try it over here, it'll try to grab that other line. But that's what it should look like, going straight over to the reference line. Now we just need to know what our landing weight is.
68,804.
805.
60,805?
68,805.
That's 64. But remember, my weight was off to begin with.
But 68 would be over max landing
I
weight.
have 65, 129.
I'm 64, 350.
Oh, yeah.
But we already know my weight was 400 pounds on the Adams.
I mean, a couple hundred pounds, all of you should be within a couple hundred pounds,
Yeah.
but everybody,
771.
That's all.
those are all over the map. Okay, so everyone's takeoff.
What's landing again?
67.
The max landing weight for the plane is 67,000 pounds. So
Oh, no, I didn't take it out. I didn't notice that. Did you take it out?
Alternate fuel and reserve?
you don't, yeah, so
Oh.
leave alternate and reserve on the plane. The only thing you're minusing is just the burn from San Fran to Kalispell. That's the only thing you leave on the plane. Unless you had hold or contingency fuel, which I don't think anybody added that, right?
What?
No.
Okay. So what was your fuel? What was your starting fuel?
10,251.
Okay. And then, so if it was 10,251, and then everyone's burn was somewhere in the mid 7,000, right? The burn off from San Fran to Kalispell.
Where did we write that down?
You just do the.
Well, just go back to your initial fuel. So this is where I was having you at the very first one. I was telling you, make a calculation for your initial fuel and then make one for just your alternate, but keep them
Oh.
separate.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So 7,200.
Okay, so 7,200 for you. What do you have, Caden?
If I put it down for that, I did for
Takeoff weight or for fuel?
For your burn, your initial, when you calculated your initial fuel, you should keep those numbers separate so that you can reference back to them. So what did you have for your 4,000 pounds first hour?
7.
What did you have for that? So you had 6750?
I got 750. If this is the right number, I can't remember.
Okay.
Yours is the same as mine, off 1,000.
Off 100.
You said
What'd you have,
7,500,
John?
right?
Yeah.
I had
Uh,
You had 7750, right?
I'm working it back right now.
It was an hour and 54 minutes. Or an hour and 55, some of you
So that's
used.
4,000.
So 4,000 for the first hour.
Yeah, I didn't even 7,000, but I didn't do an alternate yet, because
I was not asking about the alternate.
Oh, we leave the
Well, see,
alternate
I did
on.
mine, I accidentally added in, like I got so focused in on my numbers, I added in my little bit of alternate time, so then I had the 2:04. But I know where I messed up, like, and I have all my numbers right here that are all in. But I know they're all.
So you got 6,700.
The real good system.
Then that would be what I have. If I take off the
I got 6717.
alternate.
Okay. 6,700, 6,717, 6,750. That should be your guys' burn. So more or less.
6750.
Between 6,700 and 6,750 is depending on whether you did an hour 54 or an hour 55, or if you did an hour 54 and 20 seconds, but it shouldn't have been. It should have been either an hour 54 or an hour 55, depending on if you rounded up or down.
You're talking about our very first.
The very first initial fuel, yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't even set. I was expecting 2 hours.
So yeah, yours was close to mine, I messed up. But I know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even do my route yet, so I just went off of what Sam actually said it was like.
Okay.
You get
I don't know, now I'm just nervous that I'm not doing it right.
And you
I'm
had
way
that's with
over.
all the route and everything.
no, 'cause
Yeah.
you took off your.
So,
Sounds to me like you added in your
Reserve.
alternate fuel.
And
That's
your
what it sounds like to me.
Well, yeah.
No, take that out. This.
Yeah, and I said 7,700. You know,
That sounds like with the alternate on though.
Yeah.
because the alternate fuel was 1050, well, that's what mine was.
That's what
yeah,
that was
mine
too.
was too.
Yeah, but we're not adding in alternate fuel right now. That's what I'm
I
saying.
know, but
So just back minus your
4,000 for the
alternate fuel out of
first hour,
Yes.
And then
and then 54 minutes, which is another 2,700.
700. That's it.
Yeah,
That's your
so
answer.
plus those two together.
Hey, that's what I did.
That's
That's
6,700.
6,700.
Okay.
Like, 'cause that's all I got. Fixing things. So
You got it, Courtney.
Okay, so 6,700. So if your initial total fuel, so if you're 6,700 and our alternate fuel was 1,050.
Yeah.
Okay, so add the 1,050 into it. Now add the 2,500 into it for your reserve. So 10,250 for like the takeoff fuel essentially. Don't add taxi fuel in here. Don't do any of that. So if you're at 10,250, now minus out your 6,700. Okay, that should leave you with 3,550. That should be the fuel on the plane when you land. Okay, so if you go to your takeoff weight of, well, let's just call it 71,500 because I know some of you were just above that and some of you were just below that. But let's say you're at 71,500 and just minus off your burn of 6,700, your landing weight is 64,800. So that should be where your landing weights are. You had 64 something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should it be what?
64. If you use, I used 71.5 minus 6,700.
And you got
I got 64,800.
Yeah, because that's still right where I'm a little bit off from, which is, you know.
what did you say yours was?
64,800.
That's right.
So what are you getting?
Got 51 now.
this is
So
a-
okay, so your fuel, you add your burn
right? So you'd add 6,700 to that 10,250.
No, you minus it.
Minus it
Because you're
off
burning
that. That's what I messed up.
Well, I don't. If you got 51,000 something, then there's something more than that. So as far as the rest of you guys, so Courtney, are you good on that now? 64.8.
Yeah, when I try to change, I just was overthinking it.
Okay. Crystal, Chantel, you guys good?
We're at 66.4 or 64.6.
Okay, but you're still close. So Crystal,
I'm figuring it out. We're good.
John, you good back there?
Yeah.
Scott, you good? Tyler, you good? Getting it, Caden?
No, I'm so messed up here.
When
So-
you add this plus your burn fuel, which was the 6,700.
Okay, so walk me through it one more time.
Okay, so you've got this fuel. That is correct. That's what your total fuel is.
Mhm.
Okay, that's your takeoff weight. So you're good there. The only thing you're doing right here is so where are you writing your burn calculations here? I want to see where are you putting your initial fuel burn numbers.
Up here.
Okay, so you need to start making columns. Like
Yeah,
you
well, I
gotta-
wrote it down right here, so
Yeah.
it's 67.
Okay, so just if that's what your burn is.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna take this to figure out your landing weight. So just get rid of all this for a minute. All you're doing to do your landing weight is just go take your takeoff weight, 71,304, minus your burn. That's all you gotta do.
Oh my gosh, it's way simpler. Okay.
604. Now you're landing with 35. So if you want to know how much fuel you're landing with to change your index, take your 10,250 and minus your burn there too. You're landing with 3550. You come over here, get 3550. You're like minus 2. So you change this index here by minus 2. It really doesn't hardly change it at all. You just change your index, so then you get your landing weight, your landing index.
Awesome. Thank you. That was way easier. For some reason, I was making it way more complicated in my head.
Let's see here.
No.
So the first index we get from the chart is
So much easier.
Yeah, so the route index, the passenger index that we figure out down at the bottom when we put our passengers in. That next one is half cargo index. We figure out like how much fuel weightage we have, and then right here in this half cargo, if we have 36. It's 24.1 based on just the way that we have it now, and that'll tell you what your index is for that. Yeah. And then we figure out, add that all up to your zero fuel, and then we just add those to get that index. And then your fuel, that you did right there. And then you just get your fuel index to find that all down here. I got 2.1. So that's just right there on the chart. And then we'll take off weight and just add those numbers, and we got the rest on that. It's right there. And then I'll do the landing.
So it may serve you well, like if you go back and watch just the video on the day we first did the weight and balance, just to refresh on all that. Because we even calculated the landing weight on those ones, so you should be able to see it in there. Okay, so 65,000, or sorry, 64,
800.
somewhere in the 64.5, 64.6. Everyone's kind of in that ballpark, right? Okay, so let's see. So we're right here. We're gonna go to our landing weight. So if you're just under, we're just gonna say 64,500 just to kind of average us out. So 60, so we're above 60, so we're going to the right and then following this dotted line here and up to this just below the 65 line. So I'm gonna say like somewhere like right in there, and then connecting my dot there, just below 65, then line straight over. That might not be perfectly straight.
I called mine 58, 5.8. That's what I called mine.
Okay. And I think on, let's see, 5.6, so 7, 8, 9. So I'll call mine 5.9. That's what it looks like on that one. Does everyone feel a little bit better about this chart?
I like those right here.
What is that 5.9?
It's just your fuel. Times it by 1,000. 5,900. Yeah, if you just, all you got to do, I mean, if you have a question on the chart, just read it. Trip fuel,
Okay.
1,000 pounds.
Did you guys decide on the alternate? Did you do Helena or Great Falls?
We did Helena.
5,800.
So why do we care about this simplified fuel?
You have to compare it to.
Well, the thing is this fuel is going to be a lot more accurate than our initial fuel, because this one is calculating winds, whereas our initial fuel is not. So our initial fuel of 6,700 compared now, if we're looking at the simplified fuel, 5,900 is what I'm showing here. It's a pretty big difference. So this one having the wind calculated into it, that tailwind that we were talking about, when we looked at it yesterday, we kind of just briefly looked at the winds, remember, and just to kind of get an estimate when we were trying to do our ETA to wonder if we needed an alternate or not, because we were 4 minutes over. And then we looked at the wind, and we could all tell that we were probably going to have a tailwind, and sure enough, we do. We have an average of a 33 knot tailwind. And it's making a pretty big difference in the fuel, the initial to the simplified.
So you say that's 59,000 pounds?
5,900 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have like a really strong headwind and you're doing this and your fuel, your simplified fuel shows you like at a greater one, then you'd go with whatever's greater.
Yeah. Just go with, your simplified fuel, just above. See, normally on this one, I'll usually say, we split kind of the difference between initial and simplified. At the end of the day, all you're really doing though is taking the three numbers to compare for. The initial one, the initial fuel, really we're just doing so that we can do our weight and balance, because we don't have any fuel number to use to do that. Then once we have all that stuff, then we can actually run a simplified version and do this, because we have headwinds or tailwinds, winds calculated into it, our cruising altitude calculated into it, as well as our landing weights and our distance all kind of in there. So this is now compensating for that 30 knot or that 33 knot tailwind that we have. So just as an example on this one, this is all calculated here, but let's just say this was a 33 knot headwind, okay? Just to kind of use as an example, we would be 10, 20, 30, so we'd be like, somewhere, that's a really bad line.
It works.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Anyway, and then go up so you can see that, just by kind of tracing the line, then over, and then up, we'd be closer to what that initial fuel estimate that we have is. So, anyway.
On your chart right there, the furthest box, so it has the dotted line, and then it also has the more solid line. What's the difference?
So the dotted line is for flight level 370 and above, and then the shorter line, the 350, is meant for the lower altitudes. But what I've just told you guys to do is just always just use the dotted line. Yeah, just always use. Doesn't matter where you're at, just use just the dotted line. Okay, everybody good on that? Simplified fuel? Okay. Next step. Performance, or our actual lay calculations now.
I don't know, I like going and filling in the pages.
You can do that right now too. Like I said, all of that part, for me, it's easier to just fill out all of that leftover stuff at the very end because you can do it all at once and it takes 2 minutes. But
I guess for me, then it's okay, that simplified's done and move on. For me,
if you should fill out the simplified box,
that's all,
right?
The other I just filled out last night on my own.
Yeah, the other one.
Yeah, the simplified, I just went, why we keep been talking, I just filled that in on that page, just so to move into okay, this is done now, it's the links part.
Yeah.
For me.
What are they doing downstairs? Are they having a wedding or something?
It's the same party as last night, they're still going, don't you know? Didn't you get your invite?
It's a 20.
You didn't stay here on that party?
It's a 24-hour fiesta. Anyway.
That's why they need siesta.
I'm gonna join them on the siesta this afternoon.
I would pay a lot of money for a siesta right about now.
All right. This is done.
So if you didn't have your other stuff, your other pages in there, 1 second here. I'm gonna bring up the flight plan package here real quick.
So now we got 5,900, we take the middle, we go in between 5,900 and the original, what we put on the aircraft. Then from there, it's pretty much we're done with fuel, isn't it?
No, you still put your simplified over there, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna show you. I'm bringing up the flight plan packet here real quick.
So the green and blue dots and all that, those are METARs, right? On the Sky Vector?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my Sky Vector, how do you bring those up? I've been trying to click on them, but they disappeared and I'm not finding those in my.
You just turn them on over here in layers. Is there a reason you'd want them though?
Oh, I don't know, just maybe just to look at when's the last one.
Well, the thing is we don't use any of the weather from Sky Vector because it's going to be totally different than the weather in your packet.
I've been kind of playing with it too, just looking at the weather and reading those. So when you go into layers, where's that button?
Just right here, text weather.
Okay.
You can get an app if you want to look at METARs.
You can just, if you're just playing around with Sky Vector and want to know the current weather somewhere, yeah, it's just that text weather right there.
I'm watching the storms and stuff.
In fact, I'm going to turn mine off.
I can get this app.
All right, TFRs.
And you can plug in whatever airport you want and open up all the.
Cool.
Okay. So in your flight plan packets, if you have anything filled out on the first page at this point, it should just be the date, the flight number, the aircraft, like your airport's route. But anything on ETD, ETE, ETA, true airspeed, any of this fuel, none of that should be filled out. The only thing down here that you may have filled out at this point would be your airport, runways, outside air temperature, wind. I mean, most of this you can fill out, except for your what?
Might be delayed.
Yeah, well,
We
you
do have a
that second one you could have, yeah, like the 1700 you could. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it makes no point to me to like jump around and start putting stuff in it. If you just do it once at the end, that's easiest. My big thing is I'm just trying to avoid you guys like, okay, just write in one box of one of the things, and then you're like going back and then forth, back and forth, and then writing it in. I just say leave this stuff until the very end, because all of this numbers, all of the stuff that goes right here, including this box, and this box, are all going to be your final numbers. So just to avoid being confused and messing anything up, just leave it. Fill it out at the end. And I even like to leave this here for the very end, most of it, even though you could fill in these first 5 boxes here, including the flaps, but your planned takeoff weight, all these 3 numbers here, you're not going to be able to get until your final numbers are calculated. So once again, if you are filling something out here, it's like you're going to have to come back to it anyway. So that's why I say anything that has stuff that's you don't get until you do your final numbers, I just say leave the entire section until the end and then fill it out. Your MELs on this one, we didn't end up, we ended up having to clear that MEL. So
Did you guys delay it
To 17.
to miss that MEL thing? Because I saw one of there was like.
Well, the MEL was one thing. The MEL, you couldn't even delay and go with that MEL. So that MEL you cannot go with at all.
Oh, really?
It doesn't matter what your ETD is. You can't go.
You can't really miss.
Think about 10 degrees and visible moisture. 10 degrees less.
Dang.
The entire TAF has snow.
So did you guys do a different
We just
aircraft?
said maintenance.
Yeah, we had to delay the flight because of the weather minimums.
Right.
And so then we just cleared the MEL. Kept the same aircraft.
Cool.
So this is the page we're going to fill out next. But this page here, the reason I usually end up leaving this entire page for the very end is because a lot of this information here on the bottom, like the V1s, the V speeds, we don't figure that out until the very, very end, until we have our final numbers. And so I just do this whole page at the very end at once. Other than the only thing is if you want to write in your simplified fuel, the one that we just figured out, you can write it in right here. If you wanted to jot it down, you could put in the 5900.
I got 79.
No, we got 59.
79 was the.
Your alternate fuel is just staying the same, so you can put that in there. We're just using our initial fuel on that. We didn't do contingency or takeoff, we didn't do contingency fuel, so 59 plus 25 plus 1,050 is our takeoff fuel.
450, 9,450.
When we turn in our flight plans to you, you don't need our charts, right? Just the.
I just need just the packet. That's it.
Right, fuel is
So
9,700.
What's that, Courtney?
Nothing. Nothing happened. Sorry.
Okay. This next page, this should be filled out.
What? Obviously.
What's that?
Yeah, I didn't do that.
We looked at all. We know that we're taking off on runway 28 right. We looked at the destination. We already looked at the runway, the ILS, the minimums on both our destination and alternate. So if you haven't filled it out, then go ahead and do it right now. But we already did all the, I guess what I'm saying is we did all the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't think.
You may not have actually put it in.
1,700. That's what
Oh,
it
yeah,
is, too.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Don't need to reach you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you've got it there.
Yeah. What's STD? And that's it. I did the new departure on there, so I did 290.
That's a different class.
Scheduled time of departure.
290 at 4 knots, 6 statute miles, days.
Then the rest of it.
And then
The temperature there was 10.
was 10, 2.04, altimeter 3009. And then we did runway 28 right.
I'll bring up the San Fran jet chart here. So we're going to our takeoff minimums chart. We already know we're using 28 right. Oh, sorry, right there. Okay, so standard takeoff minimums for a 1 and 2 engine plane for 28 right. So 1 statute mile. The less than standard RVR. 1600. The less than standard visibility. Okay, so 1600 for that one. 1/4 statute mile for that one. And
That's what I wrote down.
you could do, yeah, you could either do the 6s or the 5s. I just told everyone I didn't care. If you do the SkyWest minimum, that's fine. Or if you do the minimum on the chart based on center line and high intensity runway lights. But some of the airports have the one that even goes even lower to 300 with the HUD. But just never do that one. Either that middle one or the SkyWest minimum. Either one's fine. So I'm just going to do the 5s just because it says it here on the chart. Okay. All right. Destination is Helena.
No, that's our.
Wait, sorry. Yeah. I got it. Yeah.
Our alternate. $19.04. What do you take?
What kind of weather are we? Oh,
030 at 8 knots.
008 knots.
5 statute miles.
5 statute miles.
Dash, rain, snow.
So what's dash rain mean?
Minus.
Light.
Or light.
Rain.
Light rain.
Snow.
Snow, regular snow, just SN.
Listen, I have
Is it RASN?
RASN, yeah.
So if it's all together like that, that means light rain and snow.
Snow.
Yeah.
Scattered at 007, overcast 030. And I have the weather at 1.
The temperature?
Yeah, 1.
Oh, 1 over 1, right?
Yeah,
So temperature and dew point are at the same temperature.
and I did not write down.
Just a real quick side note, going back to weather, maybe a little quick refresher. If your temperature and dew point are at the same temperature, does that mean anything to you guys?
Moisture.
That means that the air is at its saturation point. So remember, when the temperature and the dew point meet, that means that that's when visible moisture, like fog, will appear because it's at its saturation point when they meet. Yeah?
How come it wouldn't have on there haze or fog?
It just hasn't started occurring yet.
Okay.
So, but it's not like it's going to for sure occur, but that is if there's enough moisture in the air, it will. So sometimes even though they meet, it doesn't happen because there's not enough moisture for it to happen. But in this case, it's one of the big things that dispatchers will look at, especially for coastal cities. A lot of times they won't forecast fog, and then the forecast will be beautiful. It'll be VFR, no alternate needed, but they'll start looking at the METARs and they'll see that they'll look at like the past 2 or 3 METARs and they'll see that the temperature and dew point are getting closer on every METAR, and they'll start adding alternates even though the forecast doesn't say it needs one, because as they see the temperature and dew point getting close, on the coastal cities especially, it's almost always going to happen. Like you'll suddenly get fog.
Does the dew point at an airport change, or is it always the same dew point?
No, it'll change.
Okay.
It just depends on how much moisture's in the air.
Okay.
So it will go up. Like the temperature was going down, the dew point was going up. Okay, so runway in Kalispell that we picked.
2 improved tailwind.
Was it a tailwind or a headwind?
I'm sorry.
Is it that one?
Tailwind.
It was a headwind.
At that particular airport. Is this when we would use that as a?
I thought we were saying along our whole route we had like
It's talking about landing on the runway.
Oh, landing on the runway.
Yeah, our winds aloft are all tailwind, but
Oh.
this is the wind in Kalispell on the ground.
Got it.
So just look at those winds, 030 and runway 2. Is that a headwind or a tailwind? That's a headwind. What is it?
I had one, but again, we were scrolling through pretty quickly last night.
Visibility was,
200.
so this is just asking just for the visibility right there. There wasn't any NOTAMs for it. Okay. This one is Helena.
How come you guys still did an alternate? Because,
See that ETA of 1904?
yeah.
We don't do it long enough.
So that's just based on the initial fuel. That's the initial estimate with no winds calculated. We were thinking that because of this tailwind, that once we do our final calculations, that the ETA is actually going to be less than 1904, and it would make it. If it's anything before 1900, it's going to need an alternate.
Because that'll put you into the.
It'll put you like 1859, 1858. Even if we lose just 4 minutes, it's going to need an alternate. Or 5 minutes.
Okay.
So
So as far as deciding if it's legal, we have to do that when we get to the beginning. Like once we get to this point, and we find out that it actually wouldn't get there in time, we don't have to be like, oh, we've done all this work, but it's actually not legal.
yeah, but in this case, that it wasn't necessarily. That's not what we were like figuring out though. This one was just for the alternate. So this isn't the legal part. So for an alternate, that's if you think that you're close, if you're looking at your initial fuel at the very beginning and you're seeing that you're just barely into a window that doesn't need an alternate, but let's say if it was only 2 or 3 minutes or 4 or 5 minutes, I would honestly say anything less than 10 minutes. If it's anything less than 10 minutes that you're barely into not needing an alternate, I would probably just add an alternate, because once you get done with your flight plan leagues, by the end of that, you might need it. So yeah, you still would need to know it, because your ETA on your front page is going to be your ETA from your final plan, from your calculation at the very end, not the 1904. So, and this is exactly the way it is in real life dispatch too. Okay, just so you see, and I don't know if any of the times you've shadowed with anybody, but when they start out their flight plan, like for instance, if we're doing this same flight, we do San Fran Kalispell sometimes, but let's just say this same flight, in dispatch we use what's called standard block, and it's like it's the average of every single time we've flown San Fran Kalispell over all of the years. It just takes an average of all of those flights, and it uses that average for our dispatch software. But the problem is, on any given day, it could vary by 20 minutes either direction. So sometimes when you start doing a release, at the very beginning of the release, you don't need an alternate, but by the time you get done calculating it and have the flight plan calculated, you do need one. And so it's the exact same process here. So I kind of want you to get used to seeing it like that. Like, you might not need it at the very beginning, but you might need it by the time you're done. So
you're saying if you're close,
if you're barely not needing an alternate, then I would just add one. Because I was telling Andrea yesterday that if you add an alternate, and let's say that you add one and then you still get to the very end and you still don't need it, you're not going to look bad for having it. Because your reasoning, if the examiner were to say, like, why did you add an alternate when you didn't need one, you're just going to say, well, my ETA was barely 4 minutes into this TAF window of not needing one, and so I just, as a precaution, I added it just in case they got there sooner and it did need one. The examiner's going to think that you're way above for doing that. So
looking at this tab, there's only 2, so I'm just trying to see, like you were saying, that window. Where does that window? Because it's like 1800 is pretty good. So are you saying if you are later, then you'll be back into the original tab? Is that why?
No.
okay, what tab are you looking
I'm
at?
looking at the Glacier Park tab.
Come on, stupid notes. Okay, so you're looking at this tab.
Yeah. So our ETA is like 1904, you said?
Yeah.
So that would put us on that 1800 tab, right?
18, yeah. So
Hour before and hour after. And so if it's an hour before, if we didn't make the 1900, we'd still fall into the previous line.
so Tyler, if your ETA was 1859, what's your hour before?
So I guess that'd be 1759. So that would
Which would be right there.
Okay. So you're saying if you don't make 1904, like if you're 1859, then
If you end up being 5 minutes early, which with a 33 knot tailwind, we probably will be. So in this case, we probably are going to need one by the time we're done.
So I was just like confused on why you would drop all the way down to that 1400 tab, but I guess that's the only one there. So.
Yeah, it's just because if you're at 1759, remember these taps do not begin until the minute they start. So nothing before that. This 1400 is covering everything from 1400 all the way to 1759 until this one starts.
And then what about after? So like the hour after? I mean, I guess you just
the hour after is just going to stay in this one.
Okay. Until they put out the next one, or
yeah.
Okay.
Do you ever go back to the beginning tab, the first one?
To this one?
Yeah. Or will it always, if there's a new from line, it'll always just go?
The from line will always be a new forecast. The only time you'd ever go up here is if there was like a tempo in between these two, and your ETA was before this one, but outside of the tempo, like past the end of the tempo, then you would revert back to the top.
Taps every 6 hours, right? So we got 14 and 18, so those are 4 hours.
Well, so this whole thing is a TAF. A TAF, the forecast in a TAF is for 24 hours, but it's reissued every 6.
Okay.
So it still is, so you can see here it's valid from 13/12 to 14/12.
Okay.
So that's a 24-hour period, but every 6 hours it'll get updated, if that makes sense, just in case things have changed.
But I see what he's saying. That one did it for 4 hours, like 1400 to 1800 is only 4 hours.
Yeah, this part isn't considered like these two different things aren't TAF. Like the whole thing is the TAF. This is just a line in the TAF.
I see.
That's all. Okay, so we're right here. Okay, so Helena, it was, what was the estimated time over to Helena? It was 38 minutes, right?
21 minutes.
Oh yeah, 20. Yeah, you're right, 21 minutes. So 1904 plus 21. 1925 Zulu. And the weather, I'll scroll down to it and get it. So 1925 in Helena is going to be in that line. 240 at 8 knots, 2 statute miles, moderate snow, overcast 700.
So the only reason why we can land there is because of the landing minimums at the airport? Because otherwise, wouldn't we need another alternate? Or is that?
So yeah, that's going to be part of stuff that that we've been kind of talking about these last couple of days. We were talking about alternate minimums. So we have a couple of videos on it now, but basically it's a rule called the 1 nav-aid, 2 nav-aid rule, where we have to go off of alternate minimums, like a calculation for alternate minimums, where we take the lowest possible minimums that we could have otherwise in Helena. And so we have a normal ILS in Helena that we can go all the way down to 200.5. But since we're just planning for just that one runway and that one approach, we add 400 feet to the ceiling and 1 mile to the visibility. So it makes it so our alternate minimums are 600 feet and 1.5 miles. So it ends up barely working for us.
Can you tell me again how we decide if it's 1 nav-aid or 2?
It's just how many approaches are available. So when you start looking at all the different options for Helena, you have to determine, okay, how many runways can I use to land on there? Like, considering the wind and everything else, and then how many instrument approaches do I have to be able to use? So in Helena, there's the 2 ILSs, but they're to the same runway. And so it only counts as 1. But then you have to look around and say, okay, do I have another runway that I could land on that's not going to be over tailwind, that's also open, not noted closed or whatever, that has another instrument approach to it? If you have another one, then you can take those 2 approaches and you'd use the 2 nav-aid rule. The only thing is when you take those 2 approaches, you have to look at those 2 independently, and whichever out of those 2 has the higher landing minimums, you go to those minimums and you add 200.5. And so sometimes even that 2 nav-aid rule isn't even as good as the 1 nav-aid, depending on how bad the second approach is on the minimums. So in Helena, it actually doesn't help us to even use the second nav-aid rule, because it would actually make our minimums worse. So you have to decide, is it better for me to use the 1 nav-aid rule or the 2 nav-aid rule, if you even can use the 2 nav-aid rule? So
the 2 nav-aid rule is the 400?
The 2 nav-aid rule is you add 200.5 to the approach that has the higher minimums. In order to use the 2 nav-aid rule, though, you have to have 2 different runways and 2 different approaches available for you when you get there and land. So depending on the wind and everything else, you have to just take a look at the runways and then look through their charts and see if you have two different approaches that you could use. Otherwise, you use the one nav aid rule on the best runway that you have there with the best approach. And on the one nav aid rule, you add 401 to the minimums. On the two nav aid rule, you can cut that in half, but you have to use a second approach. And sometimes that second approach isn't going to have really low minimums like the ILS does. Like at a big airport, at like a really big hub airport, like if you were using Denver as your alternate or Salt Lake City as your alternate or Vegas or any big airport, all of those airports have several runways that all have ILSs. So like at a big airport using the two nav aid rule, you'll always be able to have two runways, almost always have two runways that both have ILS approaches that are both 200.5, and then it doesn't matter which one you use because they're the same. So you add 200.5 to the higher of the two, and you come up with 401, which when we were talking the other day, I was telling you guys the lowest possible alternate minimums you can ever have is 401. That's where we get that number from. But in places like Helena, Great Falls, Kalispell, smaller cities, most of those cities only have one runway that has an ILS. And in most cases, the one nav aid rule is going to usually be the best.
So in Helena, then their landing minimums were 200.5, and we added 401
to those.
Okay.
Yeah. So it made it so the minimums were 600 foot ceiling, 1.5 mile visibility. So this barely works.
Okay.
But we did the same thing with Great Falls. So Great Falls was also an option. And Great Falls for that exact same time was 2 miles broken 600. So it's even worse, a little bit worse weather than Helena. And so that's why we chose Helena as the alternate.
But we technically could land that one also, right?
We could, but then we have these NOTAMs for ILS, runway 3, localizer, out of service.
Okay.
However, we ended up looking at it and found out that it wasn't when we were getting there. But either way, even if this is an option, it's going to probably be the same minimums, and Helena still had the better ceiling.
Okay.
So that's why we went with Helena.
So when you say same runway, does that mean the same physical runway both ends, or like are they counting the numbers as different runways?
The numbers, so one piece, like here in St. George, there's 2 runways, but it's one piece of concrete.
Okay, so as long as it doesn't matter if it's on the same piece of concrete, it's still there.
It still would be a different one. So the only thing there is that it has to be. They both have to have their own, like let's say they both had an ILS. So let's say St. George had an ILS on both ends of the runway, which a lot of airports do have ILSs on both. They just have to be 2 different ILSs, that's all. So 2 different approaches to 2 different runways, even though it might be the same piece of concrete.
Like the Z and the Y.
Yeah. Except that one, the Z and the Y, and it was actually both to the same end. So that one,
But
that's why.
still, like how it's like 2 different ones.
Yeah.
2 different approaches.
Yeah. Different chart, and yeah, there's a few other little things in it that I'm not going to go into in here. It's just stuff you'd learn in the airline, ground school. But there's a few other aspects to picking it, but just as long as you understand just the basics of it. Okay, so back to this. I guess I was going to get the temperature.
The temperature in Helena?
Helena, -2 over -4, altimeter 2995. Okay. You guys need a break?
Yes, please.
Okay, take 10 minutes. We'll start again at 11. 11:05.
You shouldn't keep a plastic bottle like that for too long.
Yay! For the weather.
The visibility.
On the runway.
On the landing, yeah.
Localizer.
Was that mode? Well, how long was the water sitting in it? On the shelf? Everywhere else? Before you got it?
So 200.5. And 110.1 on the localizer.
111?
110.1.
And that was a 1 nav 8 or 2?
One nav 8 rule.
Cool. Done.
Okay.
What's the navigate thing? Oh,
That's-
right. That's what we're.
That was what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's where we're using.
One approach or 2 approaches?
So now if you use the 2 nav 8 rule on the alternate, you need to list the other runway and approach right below that.
Okay.
Okay, so flight planning legs.
Yes, please.
Let's go look. Sky vector. Okay. So we've got our route. 762.2 is the distance. We've got it all built into there. So first step, flight planning. What's the first step?
The top of climb and then the top of descent.
Top of climb, top of descent. Okay. So, what do we need to know? I'm gonna bring this down here. I'm gonna draw my little lines. So what do we need to know in order to figure out that top of climb and start doing those calculations?
I think it's like the takeoff weight.
Takeoff weight, yeah. So let's see, we are San Francisco. We need to know the ISA, which we already know for San Fran.
+5.
Right? ISA +5. And we know the takeoff weight, because you just get it off your weight and balance. And we also know our cruising altitude, correct?
Yes.
37,000 feet. Okay, so based on that, we are going to look at the charts. I'm going to go down to, yep, we've got the winds that we'll need in a minute here. Okay, yeah, so this is climb out, that's ISA +15. ISA +15. +10. +10. Okay, so here we are, ISA +5, climb chart. Our takeoff weight was 71 and change. So we're going to round up to 72.
We're not gonna average? When would you average?
You would average, so if we were rounding up, let's say we were 70,500 and we were rounding to 71,
Okay.
then we'd be between 70 and 72. So you round it up first and then figure out where it lands. So 72 is where we're rounding up to, and we're at 37,000. So we continue that streak of just having to use one box.
This is 4 in a row.
This is 4 in a row, yeah. Okay, so those are your climb out numbers. If you need to see the little thing right there to know what they are.
You need to.
You need the 2 top ones on each side for this one?
You need the top 4.
Yeah, so time, fuel, distance, ATR.
Time, fuel, distance, and true airspeed.
Yeah, that's what I meant, the top 2 on each side.
Oh yeah, yep. So it's 24.4 minutes. It's 153.2 miles. 2,426 pounds of fuel. And a 376 airspeed. So I'm going to start jotting those things down in here. Fill out the top of this here first. What flight is this? Like number 8?
Yeah.
What is this? N708?
Yep.
Okay. All alternate is Helena. Flight level is flight level 370. And our filed route is that.
Put the end ones and all the
Yeah.
dots.
Yep. Are correct. San Fran to top of climb. So what is most of this route on?
The Oak or J32.
Yeah, most of it, yeah, J32 for sure. Okay, we got our true airspeed. That was 376, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a look at what our average heading is, and we'll just keep it off of that J32. So yeah, 019. I'm getting that right here. 019. 019. We don't do winds on climb, so we're just doing ISA plus 5. Our magnetic heading won't change because there's no wind, and our ground speed also won't change because there's no wind. Okay, total distance was 153.2. The time was 24.4. The total burn was 24.26.
Such a good memory.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
What was?
It is weird.
Remember what I was telling you guys the other day?
Yeah.
When if I see numbers, like it's just like one of those weird things like I was born with. Like if I just have a photographic memory, when I see numbers written down, or if I see them like written in text or whatever typed, I just remember.
That's
It's
the part of
weird.
the ADX I'm really struggling with right now, all the numbers. I'm like,
Yeah.
Memory aid. Have you used the memory aid?
yeah.
With the high, low,
But
like
it doesn't matter on, it's not, it doesn't give you all the answers.
That's true. But once I finally figured out how best for me to use the memory aid, it did make a difference for me.
What was our starting weight again? So what was the average?
Depends who's using I'm using my own.
I'm gonna use
Going
mine too.
rogue.
Okay. So I'm just gonna put 71.5 in here. But you guys put your takeoff weight in this top right column right here, and then take your takeoff weight minus the 24.26, and then write your new weight on the next, the one that's the next equal sign down there. And don't copy mine because it's going to be different from yours.
We have to have the
Man,
aircraft weight.
I
to
feel
do
good about
the
that first
charts,
leg.
though.
The aircraft weight?
Yeah, to pick which chart, or to pick which box we're doing the chart.
Well, yeah, and that's why we're doing this. So you got to carry your weight down to the next one.
Yeah, I think she's saying that we are copying you for the other information, and if our weight is different, could we be in the different?
That's why I'm just trying to use an average of your guys' weight so that we hopefully are all in the same box. We should be close.
Mine would be closer to 71,000, but I'm just gonna do 72 because it's not that huge difference. Is that alright?
I would just do 71.5 then, like I'm doing.
Okay.
And that's what I'm doing.
Don't go too high. Yeah.
But 71.5 yes, I'm just on a
354, 558. What did you have? Takeoff weight.
71,304.
304.
My takeoff weight?
Yeah.
64,800.
That's your landing weight.
Landing weight. Gosh, see, I'm too tired for school. I can't school today.
You get what?
What'd you have?
569. 569.
569. Okay.
I was like, that's not even your landing weight.
Yeah.
Nothing.
What was yours, Courtney?
71,305.
Okay, so me using 71.5 is really right in the middle then. Okay, good. So, so my next one that I'm getting here is like
69074.
I'm just gonna say 69,000 on this next one. I'm just gonna round down to stay even because I know some of you are gonna be just below 69 and some of you are gonna be just over 69. So we'll all use 69,000 pounds on the next one because that should be close to where everyone's at.
Just round off to 69.
Well, I'm doing mine. You can do the exact one on yours, but just know that on the next calculation, when we do the first leg, we're going to use 69,000 pounds. Even if you're just barely over, yeah. If you're barely under, you'd use 69 anyway because you'd round up. But if you're barely over, you'd also keep rounding up. So anyway. Okay, so that's the top of climb. Let's now do top of descent. Oh, PII, I'm getting this stuff. Okay. So let's go cruising on up to Kalispell. Figure out what our last little heading is going to be on this route here. I think most of it's going to be on the Victor 536, and that heading is going to be 037. Victor 536. Whoops. 037, was that the heading right? Oh, flight level. I'm going crazy here. Yeah. Yeah, 037. I'm just going to draw my little arrow down right there. 037 on the. Oh, no, I can't even get that right. Okay. I'll just wait. We'll just go to the chart.
Adam can't school today either.
Okay, so we're gonna go clear down to our descent stuff. Now, we need to figure out the ISA temperature for Kalispell.
1 degree.
What's the elevation?
2976.
That's the elevation. 2976, so basically 3,000 feet.
Could we round up to 3?
Yeah, in this case you would. Yeah, you're almost at 3. You're like 20 feet under 3. So 2 degrees per 1,000 feet.
So we get 9 degrees.
So 9.
So ISA plus 10.
ISO plus 10. Okay. So yeah, so it's 9. We're at 1. So a difference of 8, right? I'll round up to 10. Okay. Just gonna jot these numbers down over here. Plus 10. Okay. Let's go to the chart. Okay, so we're on the descent ones here, and we need to just go to ISA plus 10. What's our landing weight again?
We're landing this time for sure.
64.
64,800.
64.8. Okay, so what do we do to that number? Add 500 pounds.
Okay.
Because we got to compensate for the top of descent. That's our landing weight. We need to know our weight at the top of descent. We don't know that technically. So we're going to pad it by 500 pounds. Which is going to help us as far as the charts go, because otherwise we would be averaging 64 and 66 together. So because of that nice little rounding job, we get to go up to 66 because we're over 65. So we round to 66.
The 65.4.
What?
So my planning was 64,604.
Yeah, add 500 to that.
65,104.
So now you round that up to 66 because you're over 65.
That's right.
Unless you want average, 2 different pages together, that's
No,
fine. We can
fine.
do that.
Different pages, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're at 66,000 and 37,000 feet. So here's all of our descent numbers. So it's 15.5 in time, 97.5 in distance, 296 pounds of fuel, and 378 on the true airspeed.
What is KIAS?
KIAS is indicated airspeed. So the K is knots, indicated airspeed.
I'm gonna go find my average just because I'm off. It's gonna work a little slower.
So this box is 378 on the true airspeed. The magnetic course was 037. We were using ISA plus 10 here. Our heading is staying the same because there's no wind. And our ground speed is staying at 378 because there's no wind. Okay?
Distance.
97.5 on the distance, 15.5 on the time, and 296 pounds on the fuel. Now we're not going to bring down a weight here because we don't want to do that yet. We do know this next box below here though. And remember, we're just simply using just what we figured out from our initial fuel here. We're not doing anything extra special for the alternate like we do for all the other fuels. So we're just using direct as the route. Now, right here, remember we're either always going to use 24,000 feet or 25,000 feet, depending on whether we're going east or west. So from Kalispell to Helena is east. So we would be flight level 250.
If it was SUV 240.
Correct. We're just using that 400 speed. Not sure if anybody ever looked when we did the average heading. Did anybody write that down?
Oh, 122?
Yeah.
Is it 122? Yeah, we'll leave that next box blank because we're not using anything there. Just keep it at 122 and staying at 400. And the rest of this we figured out was 138 miles, right?
Yeah, 138.
138 on the miles, 21 on the time, and the burn was 1,050.
And you're just figuring that out from calculating off of the charts, the sky vector?
We did it yesterday.
Yeah, I know, I wasn't here.
No, I know. Yeah.
So what we did is we go Kalispell and we went direct to Helena, and it gives you the distance. But the other day I also showed them that if you're using the chart and if you have the chart out and you just take the ruler and just lay it down, put the notch right on Kalispell, and then just go straight to Helena, and then you can just do your distance right there.
So you don't need like a big relay thing, you just go.
No, it's direct. You're planning direct. Okay. So we've got all that stuff. So now we need to go figure out where is this top of climb and where is this top of descent, so that we can do the middle part of the route. So 153.2 miles along our route is the top of climb. So if you're doing this manually on the chart, you would use your ruler from San Fran to Oakland. Okay, and it should tell you roughly 9.7 miles. So 9.7 on the first one, and we're just gonna add up the rest of this by looking at the distances. So 9.7, and then what's our next distance to up?
54.
So 54. So 9.7 plus 54, and then our next distance is 110 to the Mustang. So what's 110, 54?
173.7.
Okay, so we know that by the time we get to Mustang, we are past our top of descent now, right?
20.5 miles.
So 20.5. So that means our top of top of climb. I mess those up all the time. Top of climb is 20.5 miles before Mustang. So like somewhere here over the lovely Lake Tahoe area.
So you're talking about using the charts for the practical. We need to get the rulers.
You'll have it all there.
You'll have it all there.
It'll be there.
I haven't used that yet. I know you probably did it in class, but you've seen that.
Oh, that's right. It was that day you left. That's all right. I'll give you a crash course right before you take your practical. You'll be fresh. You can even take one of these and take my ruler home if you want. Take one of the charts or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, it's easy. It's kind of the same thing that we're doing right now.
The charts are going to have the mileage on.
Yeah, the charts are going to have the mileage. So right here, so we know our top of climb is just right here before Mustang. Okay, so now let's go take a look and figure out where. So if you're writing this, I would notate this in here. I'm going to put TOC equals 20.5 nautical miles before FMG.
Hey Adam,
Yeah?
for our miles in this class, can we borrow your chart and do it with the chart?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the only thing would be is if you're taking it like at home or something, we just have to coordinate that and how to get it to you.
Okay.
Okay, right here. Okay, so the top of descent is 97.5 miles before Kalispell. So let's go now to Kalispell. Let's go to the low chart. So this little distance from the VOR to the airport, you're going to have to get manually, even though it says right here 7. It's giving it away. So you're going to have to use the ruler on that. On this, if you scroll down to the very bottom, Kalispell to GPS says 6.6. Rounded it to 7 on that. Okay, so that's 7. And what is the distance from miles past to the Kalispell VOR? 75. So 7 is there, so we're at 82 now. So we're not quite to the top of descent. Now we got to go back to the high. So the next one is, this next distance is going to be huge. So 82, 90, so we're 97. So the top of descent is what, about 15 miles before Mullen Pass? 15 and a half miles before Mullen Pass. So the only thing that we need to compensate for here is when we calculate our distance, we just need to go all the way to Mullen Pass and then minus 15.5 off of it.
Does it matter if you put past or before? I guess it doesn't, because you're not really.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like here, you're just notating, and the only reason we're even putting it here is just so you know to take it off or add it to. So TOD equals 15.5 nautical miles before MLP. Okay. So that's in there. We've got those two things in there. Now we just got to fill in this gap. So we need to break up the segment here. Let's just take a look at it from like really up high. Okay? Okay, so looking at it from like right here, we know that our top of climb is right in this spot, right here before we get to Mustang. And then we round the corner, Mustang, and go up. And then this section right here is huge. But one thing, I think the easiest thing here is the easiest thing is to always just try and use the VORs. I mean, you remember the rule of not really going over like 300 miles. So, but it doesn't matter if they don't necessarily have to be equal though. So if you wanted to go from like top of climb to lake view, that would work good. How did this one get? Oh yeah, no, that's Rome. Wait a minute. Yeah, Rome. Yeah. Okay. So top of climb to Rome, and then Rome to top of descent. So let's figure out how far that is. So Mustang is right here. Mustang. So it's 201 from Mustang to the Rome VOR, and then we have to add the 20.5 back into it.
221.5.
Okay, so 221.5. So if you're right here, we can just go ahead and write that in. 221.5. And then if you want to get, if you want to, get your next segment just in there, like as far as the distance and stuff. So TOC to REO is going to be that one. And then the next one's going to be REO to TOD. So let's go back to Sky Vector for just a second, and then, so Rome all the way, so it's 307 all the way to Miles Pass. I keep calling it Miles Pass, Mullen Pass.
Is it 307?
307. So we got to minus off the 15.5 though.
So 291.5.
291.5.
Were you 15.5
I
closer to Glacier Park from that?
No, the top of descent was 15.5 before. So like I always think of it as if you're flying to the destination, so it's going to be before you get to Mullen Pass. Yeah.
Did you say 90 or 20? 291 point?
Oh,
291.5, is that what we got?
307 minus 15.5.
291.5? Okay. So it still fits barely into our it's not over 300.
If it was, though, we could still use it, right?
Yeah, I mean, 300 is just if you're barely over 300, that's fine. Just don't go
60 miles fast.
Don't go crazy with it, yeah. The longer you get, the less accurate your winds are going to be. So, okay, good. So we can use that. So what is most of this top of climb to Rome on? I think isn't it J7 when we turn the corner?
Mustang, yes. J7.
Yeah.
And you go back to J7.
Okay, so most of that's on J7. So we'll just say J7. 37,000 feet. We don't know that yet. So let's go in and figure out what our winds are. So if we're using our winds here, the best is probably going to be to use, well, let's take a look on this one, because if we're going all the way to Rome, So Boise's right here. So Boise's a good one to use. Mustang's here. So the options we have are, we've got Sacramento winds, which are right here. So we're starting here, but we got Sacramento winds, and then we've got Lakeview winds that are right there, and then we've got Boise winds, which are right there. So I would just say let's average up Lakeview and Boise.
On the chart, the winds like stations are always on a VOR. So if we're looking at the chart, we can find them on a VOR to see how close they are to our route.
Yes and no. They're usually either at an airport or a VOR. But the problem is, if it's an airport isn't always necessarily going to be a VOR. So that's the other problem. If you use this little thing right here, these are the Winslow stations. All of these. So you get Lakeview, you got Boise right there. So.
Minus 53.
So let's do Lakeview and Boise. So 265, and then. So I'm going to write over here. I'm just going to go my first leg data. So 265 is the wind at, what's the average of 108 and 82?
95.
95, and then
Minus 53.
minus 53. Okay, now, so how high are we? What altitude are we at? Okay, what's ice at 37,000 feet?
59.
Negative 59. Okay.
GPI so plus 10.
You're so fast back
So
there.
you're figuring that out. So you're 37,000, divide that by 2.
Times it by 2.
Times
But don't use 1,000, just use 37 times 2.
minus 15.
That's going to give you what ISO should be. Just you have to remember that it's negative, though. Okay. 37 times 2 is 74, minus 15 is 59, but you just got to remember that 59 is really actually negative, and then compare it to that. So negative 59 or negative 53, that means this one is 6 degrees warmer, which is going to be ISO plus 6, which we round to ISO plus 10. Oops. Okay, so what next? We need what's our average heading for this leg? That's the wind direction.
Oh, I'm sorry. You gotta look at the chart.
So most of this is going to be on the J7, right? So we start out like 20 miles before this, but the heading, once we turn the corner at Mustang, we're heading 007. Most of that wind, 007 is going to be pretty good. Like if you wanted to bring in a little bit, like the heading that you're on from J32 is 036, but it's only for 20 miles. So, if you wanted to push this up to maybe 010 instead of 007, like add, 3 degrees or something, that's probably okay. You could even just go with 007. It's probably not going to be a big deal either.
I'm doing that.
For us, I was just going to say maybe we just use 10 because it's just an easier number. But
Okay.
I just don't want anybody to be confused of how I got to that number. That's the big thing. This whole route is mostly 007 with a tiny little bit of 036. So I'm just getting a tiny little bit to clutch it over. But like I said, even if you just did 007,
Is that going to affect our fuel?
no. If it did, it would be maybe by like 10 pounds, 20 pounds. We've got, when you do your final, when you do the in-class final, you've got like a 500-pound buffer. When you do your FA final, he does like a 1,000-pound buffer. So these little tiny things like this, that's why I don't care what you do, because it's not gonna be significant enough to get you outside of that buffer. Anyway, we don't know true airspeed. Okay, so
So where do we put the 10?
Well, we would put it in here. We don't know our true airspeed yet. Yeah, our winds up there are 265 at 95. And ISO plus 10, which I don't have room to write it in there. So let's go to the chart. We're going to the cruise charts now. And we're using ISO plus 10. So ISO plus 5. Plus 5. ISO plus 10. What did we weigh? 69,000 on this leg, right? Okay. So this one, we broke our streak. So we're going to have to average. So we're at 69, so we're in between 68 and 70, and we're at 37,000 feet. So we're going to have to do these two boxes averaged together. Everybody's wondering which two boxes.
They're pretty close, dude.
Oh, that's a crappy circle. Okay. We only need two numbers off of this, though, remember.
The engine and the speed.
Yeah, the speed, and the speed's going to be easy, because if you're at the same altitude, it's going to be the same speed. So 451 is going to be our true airspeed.
1611 and 1639.
That's the
1625.
Why 451? Oh,
Yeah.
right, I meant the indicator.
yeah.
And then you add the extra, so you get the difference of 1625 plus for another engine, right? For 3250.
We're just looking at the burn, and then the true airspeed. The true airspeed is the same, so that's going to be an easy. So the only thing we need to average is 1611 and 1639.
3250.
And then you went ahead and doubled it, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's fine. Okay. So the average is 1625, and then double that, and it's your 3250. And why are we doubling it? Yeah. So I'm coming back over to here, putting that. Come on. I'm just gonna put that. My burn equals 3250 per hour. Ah, plus sign. Come on. Okay. So let's go back to this. Our true airspeed. Come on. $451. Okay, so now the rest of this we don't know because we got to take out our lovely app and make sure you clear out all the information that you already have in there. We should be on the heading and ground speed. Okay, so our true course is 010. Our true airspeed is 451. Our wind direction is 265. Our wind speed is 95.
So does that make our tailwind 10 knots?
I'm showing 15.
So.
Are you on the heading and ground speed one?
Yeah. 451 for
So 466 minus 451 would be your headwind, right?
You put this is 7 on your true course. Okay, so you use 7.
Oh, right.
If you use 7, then it's gonna be different than my 10.
Oh, right, okay.
So yeah, it'd be just a little bit different.
You did 358.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
So then our ground speed, do we put the 466? Or do we minus, like Sean was saying, minus the 451 or 2
So the ground speed is whatever it just told you it is on the app, so 466. Because that's the number we're gonna use to do our calculation. So our heading is 358. And our ground speed is 466. Okay. So now we've got our ground speed. So how are we going to figure out time? Distance divided by speed.
Can you tell me that, so just to figure out what our headwind is when we would take the ground speed from the true airspeed?
Yeah, the difference between your ground speed and your true airspeed is either your headwind or your tailwind. Whatever. If your ground speed is higher than your true airspeed, then it's a tailwind. If it's lower than your true airspeed, then it's a
Do we
headwind.
need to make note of that on here at all? Or
No,
is it
you just need to have your right ground speed. That's all.
Okay.
So how many minutes is this route?
28.5.
28.5. And what's the burn?
1,544.
Yep. Everybody getting that same answer?
I got 1571, but I rounded my time up to 29.
Okay. 29? Okay, yeah, I got you. 29. Okay. Harper's is good about 1544.
Yeah.
Which one?
On the burn, like,
The burn per hour was 3250.
right.
So
Is it some-
1544 is what we're getting on our
Divided
burn.
by 60,
So,
then times by 8.
so 3250. All right, so is that the part?
Yeah, I have that burn for 3250.
Uh-huh.
My time's a little bit different because I went with the different heading.
Okay. So what's your time?
So I did 221.5 divided by 461, which I got 0.5 by 3 times the 60, 33.2. Now what do I do with that?
Where's your unconverted times of 0.553 and do your fuel times your unconverted?
So if you just go, so
Somewhere just going from my time to my burn.
So, did you remember how I tell you that when you, so if you go your 221.5 divided by, you had 461,
Yeah.
okay, so 461,
Just
that 0.4804,
to get your time.
so 221,
Oh, actually, I want to.
yeah, 221.5 divided by 461. Yeah, that's going to go higher, so you're going to get 0.
And you'll get that like unconverted.
Yeah, but remember this is that, it's just that one you need to.
And then that's what your unconverted, and convert it to the minutes, so
Now
these
times this,
times
so it's
that
times
unconverted
60.
decimal.
so you're 28.8. Now just clear it out and go and take your burn, 3250.
And then to get your
Times
fuel,
by that thing you just circled.
you're gonna take that 3250, so that fuel burn that we have from our cruise charters, times the unconverted time, so that decimal point right here.
Correct. Yep. So it was like 1544.7, so I was going to just round mine to 1545. Now, take your weight minus the 1545, bring it down for the next leg.
J7 still, right?
I think most of that next one is that J537.
Oh, yeah.
537.
Yeah. Is it 537? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So J537 is most of the next, is all of the next one actually.
370.
Still at 37,000. You're going to probably see we're still at 451 on the true airspeed, but we're going to just make sure. So this next part, let's go do our chart stuff first. Okay, so we're at 64,500 pounds ish. Is that where you guys are at? Or wait,
No.
67.5. Is that correct? In that range, 67.5.
354.
Yeah.
68?
You're at 60. Are you already rounding or?
That's what, yeah, I'm saying go up to 68. Is that what we're doing?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's see here. Let's first figure out our wind here, second leg.
260.
Second leg. So we just use well, if we can take a look here and just kind of see what's closer. So we took that last one to Rome. Boise's still right here, just up above it. So Boise, and then the Mullen Pass VOR.
How close is that to Lewiston?
Well, Lewiston is
Down here by Boise still.
yeah, Lewiston is technically right. It's like right. You remember that Nez Perce VOR?
Oh, yeah.
Nez Perce is Lewiston, so it's somewhere right up in here. That's Spokane. So Lewiston's like right over in this area.
Okay.
If we went to the low chart, we could see it.
No worries.
It's actually right here. So
I
that's where Nez Perce. So it actually goes right by where we're at. And then our top of descent is actually just right here. So yeah, so that's fine. We'll just use just do an average of Boise and Lewiston. That'll work. So 82 and 45. 63.5. So we'll round that to 64. And temperature -50, -48. We'll just call that -49. We're still at 37,000 feet here, so ISA is still going to be -59. So right on the +10. Okay. So good, that works. Staying on the same chart. We're ISA +10. We're at 68,000 pounds, rounding up, right? So 37,000 feet, so we're using one box. And it's actually half of the box where, well, we used this box already on the previous one, so we're just not averaging it. So we can just take that 1611 and the 451 there. So 1611 times 2 is going to be your total burn per hour. And then 451 on the true airspeed. So what's the 1611 times 2?
3,222.
So 3222. That's right, burn equals per hour. Okay, and true airspeed of 451. So I'm back over here now onto the chart. 451 there, and that heading, so we started at Rome and we're heading 358, and so the whole thing is actually 358. We stay 358 the entire time. So.
Does that seem right though? Because 358 be like almost straight up and down.
It depends. See, all of these headings, it's going to be a little different because this is a flat map, and so these headings on here are going to be, they're not going to be adjusted for the magnetic variation. So what looks like a 358 true, if you were to put it magnetic, then it would look like you're thinking. But the problem is it's going to look weird on this because the chart's like tilted, when it's because it can't go straight north on a flat map, So anyway, so yeah, 358 is the heading. The winds were 260 at 64. Okay, and now we get our chart, or our app. Clear it out. True course, 358. True airspeed, 451. Wind direction, 260. Wind speed, 64. Okay, so 455 on the ground speed, consensus?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start figuring out time then.
Can you explain this step by step? I had it yesterday and now it's.
Which, the next part?
Yeah.
Okay, so time. We're going to figure out time, we need our distance divided by our ground speed. So take 291.5 divided by 455 is going to give you a decimal of 0.6406. So write down that decimal. .6406. Okay, write down that number and circle it. Now leave it on your calculator though. Just leave it as it is and just go ahead and times it by 60. And it's going to give you 38.439. So just take that and we'll just say 38.4 minutes. That's your minutes on the route. Okay, so write in your minutes, 38.4. Now for your burn, we need to go.
It's a 3222.
Yeah. Okay. So your burn, we wrote it down back here in our note. Right here, burn is 322 per hour.
And then you times the 0.6406.
Yes. That number that I had you write down and circle,
Yes.
3222 times 0.6406. That's going to give you your burn, 2,064. Now take your 67,455 pounds minus the 2064 burn. And that should be 65,390. Okay.
Do you want me to start the final?
Yeah, if you want to, unless you want to see the end part of this.
I'm good from here on out.
Okay. So we're done calculating, so the next thing we're going to do is look at how to get the rest of those numbers.
For the segment burn on the alternate, you guys just use like the 3,000 pounds for the hour.
For what?
For the segment burn on the alternate, use that 3,000 pounds for the hour and then just divided it by the time, the 21 minutes.
Yeah, and it gives you the 1050.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start carrying these numbers down now. So if we're 65,390 right here, just bring it down here and minus your top of descent burn. That's going to be your landing weight. So roughly 65,000 pounds. You guys, maybe a little less, maybe a little higher. Okay. Okay, so now you've got that. So I like to get everything else totaled up over here now. So total up your distance column, your time column, and your burn columns, and just write them here below.
Oh, I can't remember. We add an alternate or we don't?
No, you
That's what I
don't
thought.
add in the
Okay.
alternate. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
What are you guys getting on your time, if you've gotten that far?
763.7.
On your time.
Oh, time? 106.9.
Okay.
Give that to real hours.
So convert that to hours and minutes. Shouldn't be 218. What, you had 107 something?
106.5.
10 what?
107.3.
Okay, so just minus 60 from that. That's 1 hour. What are you left with?
Got one,
Whatever you're left with is just your
1 hour. And I have
136.
46, so just round that to 47.
Yeah, so I got 1 hour 47 minutes.
1 hour 46.9. So 47.
Yeah, 47. I rounded mine up to 47.
What was your,
Yours?
I'm a little bit off.
Yeah, yours was just a little bit off.
What
Yeah.
was your total time? Like before you converted it, like just like the 100 number? I just want to see.
106.8.
Okay. Then 112.7. Okay. Feeling better about.
Okay, so the reason I wanted to look at this one for a second, so now go back and think of this in terms of do we need an alternate?
Yes.
Yours, I think, didn't end up needing one because you were only 2 minutes less, but based on an hour 47, that's 7 minutes less than our original flight plan. Because we were an hour 54, right? And that gave us the 1904 ETA, but now an hour 47 gives us it gives us 1857 ETA. So this one now needs an alternate. So kind of a good one to see as far as that stuff goes. As far as, do we need to put one on there or not? Okay, and then did you guys add up the total burn by chance?
0634. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I just got a whole bunch of numbers. So what were they again?
I got 6330.
Okay. I guess mine might be a little bit. I'll just add mine up here. 2426 plus 1545 plus 2064 plus 296. 6331. How does that compare to our simplified?
301.
This is the number right here that you're comparing to simplified.
5.9.
Yeah.
We did 5.9, 5,900, so we're 6331. So we're 431. So basically what that's telling us is that the true one didn't end up being as much of a tailwind as we thought it was going to be when we did simplified. So, but we're still within the range that we need to be in, which is really all that matters at the end of the flight. So, so the landing weight is the 65094. So now you can start bringing these numbers down, right, to here. So your burn off is that number we just got, 6331. Then add, so you can just start adding all this stuff in here. Our alternate is 1,050. We didn't do hold. That gives us a takeoff of 6331 plus 1,050 plus 2,500 reserve, 9,881. Which gives us a ramp fuel of 10,131. Our bow weight for this aircraft, does anybody have that handy?
44858
44858.
with a payload of 15950.
15950.
950.
Oops. Okay. This gives us
60808.
What is?
Say that again.
60808.
What did you say, Courtney?
Nothing.
Takeoff fuel, and it shows you right where to get it, 9881. Carry it over. It's going to give you your takeoff weight. So you want to start matching these numbers up with what we did at the end. So 60,808 plus 9881.
What's our payload?
15,950. It should be your passengers and your bags added together.
And cargo if we have.
And cargo if you have any. Anything that's not fuel. All of your non-fuel
The
weight.
zero fuel index.
I lost my connection.
Can you see that?
Yeah, kinda.
Oh, yeah, come on
You're
in.
okay, it's just usual.
No, I can make room for you.
So I'm getting a takeoff weight of 70,689.
Okay, I'm
687. Only a little bit off, but.
Our takeoff weight would just get from whatever we had on our weight and balance, or.
No, we're adding up new numbers based on our real calculations now.
I know, look at what expected.
Wait to the test.
Do we have to put our mock numbers on here?
But our payload we get from our weight and balance.
Payload, yeah, because payload should never change.
Yeah.
Payload doesn't change. It's real the very first time we do it.
So our zero fuel weight comes exactly from our weight and balance, and then we add the new fuel.
Not the zero fuel weight, no.
Why?
See, because look at this. You're looking at your bow, and then you add your payloads. I mean, it should match, but you just need to make sure. But your zero fuel weight on the weight and balance should match this, but
Yeah, that's what.
so you should just be adding this all up. Just in case you made a mistake on the weight and balance, though. You know, that's. But then, yeah, zero fuel weight plus your takeoff fuel. Then the burn off, 6331. Equals a landing weight of 64,358.
And guess what number that matches on mine?
Nice.
Yeah, mine was way more than that.
Okay,
It's
see,
so weird when the landing weight matches. It like does not make sense.
Like after all those 200 steps.
Yeah, everything and then the landing weight, like out of all these numbers randomly it matches.
does yours match? Or actually, you didn't do
I
the first
didn't do this
part.
one yet, but I have had ones that match.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine was only off by 175 pounds.
It's a good sign.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. It like trips me out.
So this area over here, all this is copying your top of climb data and your top of descent data. So if you just look here, you're just really just putting, so this is the top of climb, which is, the time was 24.4 minutes.
Nice.
And the fuel was 24:26. The distance was 153.2, and the true airspeed was 376. And then this one is the top of descent info, which is the time 15.5. Fuel is 296. The distance is 97.5, and the true airspeed is 378.
Never mind.
So with the
So
alternate,
that's-
this is the only time that we have anything to do with the alternate other than those little boxes, the other little boxes. But we don't like have to put any of that, the alternate fuel or anything on our plan, or is it on the front page?
It's on the front page.
Okay,
It will be on the front page.
but there's no for sure answers or whatever, it's just all that estimated stuff that we can.
Yeah, we just do an estimate.
Okay.
Yeah, because we plan it direct. Yeah. So now I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the next page here. So like I was telling you earlier, I just usually fill this entire page out at the very end. It's pretty easy stuff. Flight number 8, 10/14 is the date. From San Fran to Kalispell. Write your name. Origin Airport. San Fran. So this is all just copying information you already have. 28 right. We always plan flaps 8. Outside air temperature in San Francisco was 10. Max. So this isn't your planned takeoff weight. This is just the max weight. So if you just look at this box, just copy this box. That's all we're really doing here. If anybody of you wondering why this is just kind of like copying these numbers, in real flight planning, and this is something you learn when you get into like actual airline, ground school stuff. Your runway, depending on the runway and the temperature and your takeoff weight and all sorts of different things, and then like runway contamination stuff, whether it's like wet or if it has snow on it, there's a bunch of different things, but there's a whole nother matrix of things that we look at sometimes there's weight limits. Like you guys that work for SkyWest, sometimes I don't know if you ever see if you're like looking for like flights to non-rev on, and sometimes you'll see those little things that say this flight might be payload restricted. Well, during the summer months when it's really hot, like in Salt Lake City, it's a high elevation, You remember we talked about it a lot back when we were talking about aircraft performance, like hot and high, high elevation, hot temperatures. They're killers for aircraft performance. And so a lot of times, depending on the temperature, even though the plane's max takeoff weight is 75,000 pounds, that's under the best scenario. But sometimes when you have really hot temperatures and things like that, it'll go down because the engines can't perform that high. So that's what this box is technically for. We would jump in and we would figure out, there's like a whole nother matrix of figuring out what the true takeoff weight's going to be, and you base it off of the length, the temperature, the takeoff weight, and a bunch of different things. And it's kind of like the simplified fuel chart where you go over and then you go up and then you go over and down, and it's like you follow one of those and then it ends up giving you what your max takeoff weight is.
I saw these on the ABS.
Yeah.
Those charts.
Yeah. And if you guys are interested, I can actually show you, but I actually have a video that I'll just post if you guys want to watch it and you can kind of see how it's done.
Okay.
Anyway, so let's try and finish this up so we don't get too cold. We don't have a takeoff alternate. Here's the destination airport of the runway we're landing on there is 2. Flaps 45.
45.
For landing. The outside air temperature in Kalispell was 0.1. Then we're just going to go 67,000. And then our alternate airport is Helena, 27. Flaps 45. Outside air temperature was -1. Then we would also be 67,000 right there. Okay, so that's all in there. We've got our simplified information in here. You can convert this to minutes in here. This would have been just the original one that we had, which was the time to destination was 1:54. The alternate was 21. We didn't have contingency. So an hour, so 21 and 40, so just add all those up and get your time.
2 hours and 15 minutes.
What's that?
2 hours and 15 minutes.
So that can't be right.
It should be a little over 3 hours. It's exactly 3 hours.
Exactly 3 hours.
It's exactly
yeah.
3 hours. It's 180 minutes. All this information, we have most of it, but got to get just a little bit more. San Fran. Elevation of San Fran.
Sea level?
What's that? Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is, what was it, like 15 feet or something?
I don't remember even
13?
looking.
13 for San Fran?
13, okay. Takeoff runway, 28, right. No takeoff alternate. Takeoff V speeds. Okay.
130.
Oh, you already got it?
But will you show me how
Yep.
to get the
How'd you get the
MOB
charts?
number or the MAP
Oh,
percentage
you pull
number?
them
Yeah.
on the computer.
We're going to do all of that right now.
Oh, you printed them out.
Look at you.
I have every single chart. Yeah, the other day after the library, so
It's the only way I can do it. Like I can't go, like it's too much going back and digging through the thing.
I feel ya. I wish I would have done that.
I'm really glad my parents bought me a printer about 2 weeks into class. I came home.
So what's our takeoff weight? We're basing this now off of our new numbers. So 70,689 right there. So we're going to go back into that chart. We're going to go to 71,000 pounds on the takeoff. Clear down here.
We do that too.
or I'll read the landing line.
Yeah, we're still gonna go over all that.
Takeoff free speed.
Okay, so 71,000 pounds is our takeoff. We're at sea level, so we're just gonna use this 0. The temperature was 10 or less, so we're actually using 130 right there. Okay, we stay in that same column, go down. There's our VR speed, 131. So 130 V1, 131 VR, and go down to V2, it's 142. So you plug those numbers in right here. 130, 131, 142.
And then where are you going to get that chart? A B speeds chart.
To the performance cards. It's in your files,
So
in your
it's
flight
in-
planning. No, it's in this. So if you're on the Google Drive, the same spot where that is, it's right next to it.
Okay.
I was make sure my airplane.
Okay, and then the other chart, this next chart is right next to that too. Okay, this one that I'm bringing up. Just takes a second to load.
My air conditioning
This
in my
chart.
car was this good.
Okay,
Easy out.
so take a look at your weight and balance. You don't have yours, but
I have a weight balance chart.
I'm going to show you on hers real quick, okay?
This was your work balance. That's
You just go to
64, 605. 64, 604. That's off of 1 pound.
That's awesome.
this.
Crazy, huh?
This is the worst spot. It comes like right on me.
Thank you.
And that's your good?
Yeah.
How'd you get yours?
A landing runway?
Okay, so we're going to go to our takeoff weight. Now this one only has the option of 69 or 72. We're at 71, so we're just going to go to 72.
Okay.
72, and then we were like 21, 23, so we were between that, so we'll just go to 23 at 72.
What's that, 23?
That's your percent MAC off of your weight and balance. You draw that line straight up from your takeoff index.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes.
What?
Above your landing weight right here. And then if you just like draw it right up like this, it's like 23.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Makes sense?
7.2. Take that. Go back to this. And write in 7.2. Okay?
Can you tell me what number we get from that weight and balance, and just draw your line straight up from, so you draw the line up from your takeoff?
Takeoff, wherever you plotted your takeoff weight and index.
Okay, and then you use that number to get,
You just draw the line straight up.
yeah, and then you use
And then you use that number. That number would be along this side.
And this is your stack trim?
Yeah, so whatever number you got, and then this top is your takeoff weight, and then you match those two numbers up. That's where we got 7.2. Okay, and then
How do you find out your landing speed?
we'll do that in just a second. What's the elevation was 2976 feet. Landing runway was 2. Landing speed, we go back to our performance cards. We go to our landing weight now. Okay, so you're still reading these things that say 70,000 pounds takeoff. You're going to the one that matches your landing weight. Even though it says takeoff, that's still the one you go to. So we're at like 64 something, 64,358. So you got to round that to 65. So we're going to go down to 65,000 pounds. And then you scroll to the bottom of this chart where it says landing. And then you go to the far right, flaps 45, and that's your landing speed, 132.
Got it.
And alternate airport was Helena, and then that runway was 27. Okay, so that's all filled out. Everything else is filled out. The only thing that's not filled out is just the front page. But we have all of the information for this. So this all is pretty obvious up here. You circle IFR, original release, you circle that, flight number, aircraft number. So estimated time of departure, 1700. Estimated time en route. Now this is your new numbers, the ones we just got finalized a minute ago. So an hour, 47 minutes is our ETE. Which makes our ETA 1857 Zulu. Our knots true airspeed, this is just the average from your cruise, which we had 451 on both of our legs. Taxi fuel is always 250. The estimated en route fuel burn was 6331. Now once again, these are all your new numbers that we just got. Estimated alternate fuel burn was 1,050. Fuel reserve is always 2,500. We didn't have any contingency or hold. You can just put a 0. That's going to give you your release fuel if you add all those up, which you also already have this on the second page. But if you go, yeah, this is the release fuel though. So the release fuel is the ramp fuel. So 10,131. And then the Minto is going to be the 9881.
If we have that APU MEO, do we put that fuel in the contingency?
You put it, you just, at the very end, you add it into the burn.
Okay.
You can even do it like to the side here. You could go like, if you had like 3 hours of APU, you could just go plus, whatever, 260 times 3, and then just put in like parentheses APU burn,
Okay.
if you want.
Can you tell me what Minto is again?
Minimum fuel for takeoff.
Like what things?
So it's going to be your burn, your reserve, your alternate, and then if you have hold fuel. If you don't have hold fuel, then there's nothing. So bar H, remember bar H, burn, alternate, reserve, hold.
Why would we have hold fuel again?
If you thought that you were going to have air traffic delays, like at your destination, Helena usually doesn't, or Kalispell usually doesn't. So.
Well, most likely, like in our practical, we probably won't have hold fuel.
You could or you couldn't, but yeah, I mean, if you're not going to like a busy airport or, if you're going to somewhere that has like bad weather or something, you might want to add it, but it's not going to be something that the examiner's going to care whether you have it or not.
That won't be part of our staff.
No, like he's not going to say like, you should have had hold fuel, but you didn't, He's not even going to compare your final fuel. He's just going to comparing your burn to his burn.
Oh.
So this is 9881.
You're grounded.
Okay, all this stuff we already have too. So
How did we get our true airspeed for the release?
that's just the number off of our flight plan. This is the average speed of our cruise legs. Both of our cruise legs were 451. So if you're looking to figure that out, you just go back to this and look right here. 451, average those speeds.
Okay.
No.
So sorry, that's not 28 right. That's San Fran. 28 right. Outside air temperature is 10. What was the wind? 29004. Max runway takeoff weight, that's going to be 75,000 pounds. Flaps 8. Our planned takeoff weight is 70, I think 689. Our max V1 was 130. This was Kalispell, runway 2, outside air temperature 01. The wind, I can't remember what the wind was in Kalispell.
0 for 8 knots.
Okay, this is 67,000 pounds. Flaps 45. Our planned landing weight was 64,358.
There you go.
Thanks, man. Okay, MELs, we didn't end up having any because we cleared the one that we did have. Then you sign it, make sure everything else is filled out, and you're done.
Are you gonna do more classes next week, or?
Just going to be doing them like as needed. Like if you guys want to get together, then great.
You
We can.
mentioned maybe doing like a mock practical using just the charts on Tuesday. Would you still be willing to do that one? Or another day? I don't know.
Yeah, we can do that. You were just asking about using it for your final, right? Or did you, or doing it? We can do it however, we can do either of those things, but yeah, we can do that.
I think it'd be cool if we
Yeah,
could do that.
just do one with just the packet, just the stuff we'll have in the practical.
Okay.
No computers, and just do it with the charts here.
Absolutely.
Even if we still did it all together, but just with what resources.
Yep, we can do that.
When do we have to have all of our class stuff into you?
You really just have to have it into me by, no, not necessarily. Like the stuff like you have to turn to me, all the flight plans, is really in case I get audited. So I don't necessarily care if you have that in or not by the time like you take your practical, but definitely soon, like sometime soon. Like I honestly, right now I would put your biggest priorities of just get into the position where you can take ADX and practical and get done. And then if that means turning in your flight plans after that, then that's fine. Obviously you got to take the final with me first before you can do the other one. But other than that, the other 4 flight plans, just hopefully before I move. If not, you can scan them and email them to me. All I end up doing is just scanning them in anyway.
Why does that, what happens if they audit you and you don't have them?
Because I have to, so for every student that I have to have a record of like all of your quizzes, all of your scores, your flight plans. So you have to have 5 flight plans to like have record of showing like that phase of the class. And then have to have all your scores and grades and hours. And then a record of whether you graduated, passed the ADX, passed the practical. So it's a whole big thing. That he usually just, that day that he came to class, the very first day, he audited my previous class.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So later on today, most of today, in fact, I'm going to be with CJ and Cam. If they wanted to come to the airport, would that be all right?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
What time are you doing that?
6.
You guys into the airport the other day?
The flight got delayed, so
Got delayed for like
if you want to go
hours.
tonight, we're going to just meet at the airport at 6.
Just to wait for you.
How long is it here?
How long would we be there? Well, the flight's supposed to get in right around 6:15, 6:20. And then, so we wanted to be there to like watch it land, taxi in. It's only booked to like half of the plane. So as soon as they deplane, we can like do a walk around. There's more stuff we can do, but you can leave at any point though too. So the other thing is the airport manager guy. If anybody wants to like go do more stuff, like my friend that works in airport ops can like drive us around, take us down by the ILS, down by the landing approach lights, over to the VOR, all of that stuff. If you want.
How long do you think it'll take?
I would say just the airport part, like with the airplane, like maybe, I mean, if it gets in on time, then we could probably be done looking at that. You could probably be out of there, I'm sure, before 7.
Okay,
So
and with all the other stuff.
the other stuff, I would say probably another hour if you wanted to do that.
Where do you want to meet over there?
Just right at the terminal, right at like you're catching a flight.
It's running on time right now.
What's that?
The one coming from Salt Lake's on time right now.
The Salt Lake one almost always is, so that's the nice thing. When we're counting on the Denver flight like we were last night,
Yeah.
that thing's always late.
Thanks, Al.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you.